Hey everyone, this is the India Story podcast, and we keep trying to figure out the ways that we can improve the country, ways in which we can accelerate the India story. Now, I have to tell you, if there is one spot on the India story which is completely and obviously there for the entire world to see, it's what happens to North India and Delhi and the NCR in particular every winter. I'm talking, of course, about air pollution. It is something that has to be sorted out. It is something that has to be fixed. The answers, the solutions are also known. All we need is the determination to do it. Now, what we're going to try and do over the next 1 hour is to come up with a very clear, concrete action plan. An action plan on how air pollution can be solved. Because hopefully there's now a growing desire that we have to do something. Then people say, what should be done? What's causing it? We don't know. We don't know what the solution is. There are the answers, there is the solution, we just need the will to actually act. And to help us take us through the action plan, Sunita Narain of CSE, who's been working on this problem for a long time. And one of the reasons why, Sunita, I particularly wanted to talk to you right now is that you've actually done this hard work of saying, okay, let's try and reduce what needs to be done into a very simple 6 or 7 point action plan. So I'm going to, with your permission, use that action plan as the base, because I think most of the stuff is covered in that. And then let's try and add to that, buttress it, get in some other suggestions that others have made, throw in a couple of suggestions that AI has made and say, okay, this is a good agenda.
Absolutely, Vikram. I'm so glad you're doing this because I think it's time we actually stop talking only of the problem, but what do we need to do? And that action plan is what we need to keep our eyes focused on. And I'm saying this particularly because this is the time when we cannot breathe, we choke, and we care. The trouble is, as soon as the weather becomes a little better and we have the same sources of pollution and they dissipate in the air, we forget it. And that's why action doesn't happen through the year. We have to keep our eyes focused firmly on the need for next winter to be better.
You know, it's so interesting you say that because 1 year ago in November, when that storm had hit and AQI was 600, 700, I actually put together a clean air action plan, which is not radically different to what you've got, a very similar action plan. And I did say that the problem is that November is going to end, December and January will pass. When February comes, blue skies will return and we will forget about it. So can we keep our eyes focused? We can only hope that it happens this time.
We have to do our best. In my view, it's wo jo hai na, lage raho munna bhai. That is all we can do.
Okay, I think somewhat hopeful because are you sensing that there's a little bit more pressure building up now, that people are now feeling that, look, we got to do it?
No, I think this year is dramatically different. I think it was building up. I don't want to get into this BJP versus AAP business because I find that is what is the problem now in this country. Everything is about, I did it, you did it, I did it, you did it. I think the fact is pollution is a serious problem. It is a health problem. It has been building up each year. And the reason why this year is very bad is 3 reasons. And let me spell them out for you. One, this year in particular, there is absolutely no wind. So you have a winter which is not as cold, but there is no wind. And as a result of it, you can feel the pollution more. 2, you have done very little over the last 4-5 years. So, it's a cumulative problem. Each year it gets worse. And this year, all the gains that you have made even of making some efforts, and we can talk about those efforts, that is getting negated. But the third, and I think that's what I believe, and that excites me, is that you have democratized air pollution. Okay, the reason is, many years ago, almost 10 years ago, 15 years ago, CSE, my organization, had worked and taken this matter to court and to the government to say, we need an air quality index. Now, it was something that we managed to slip through, essentially showing that if the pollution, what is the level of pollution and what does it do to your body? Now, we would have liked it much more stringent, but nevertheless, today you and I on our phone know what is the level of pollution and we know what it does to our health. You don't know what is happening in Yamuna. You don't know what's happening to other places. So you can feel the anger or the pain, but you don't know what happens to your body.
So everyone every morning is being able to open it and they see the AQI and they say 470, and by now everyone knows.
And not only that, AQI is related to what does it do to your health. So there is a clear classification that says if the AQI is this, then let's say in the poor category, the government advisory, official government advisory says that it will even impact normal people on prolonged exposure. So that's you and me, right? Non-compromised people, but we are breathing air which is poor through the year, it'll impact us. So I think what you have to understand the power of information and knowledge which is in people's hands, and it cannot be covered up. You can't get rid of pollution by just sprinkling something on the air quality monitors, because you and I have a nose. You and I have an eye.
And there's
We
no point
feel it
changing
in
the data
eyes.
and the indexes because people know what PM 2.5 is by now.
And you can feel it in your eyes. When the pollution is bad and I go out and you go out, our eyes burn.
Yeah.
You can't cover this up. And I think it's time we understood that this is not going to work with optics and cover up and small measures. We need hard steps to deal with this.
Okay, so I'm going to now move towards the action plan
Yeah.
because I think all of us have vented enough for a decade about
I
the
agree.
problem. Number two, let's also be clear that there's no point in getting politics into this.
No.
I think you need to have cross-country, cross-political lines, get the Supreme Court involved, get the local authorities involved. It's now a national priority. And do you think we are headed that way? That now we
Air
are starting...
pollution is about cooperation. Be very clear about it. The airshed knows no boundaries. Okay, you can't put a boundary around Delhi and say, "वो पंजाब की हवा है, ये दिल्ली की हवा है." You will need to take a regional approach. You will need to take a airshed approach, and the only way you can work together is to work together. Not blame Punjab, not blame Haryana, not blame Delhi, because all of us are affected.
And I think one more thing, as we start looking for a solution, one thing to be clear about is that it's often treated as a Delhi problem.
No, it's not.
Air pollution is bad in Delhi. Delhi is the worst. Yeah. But actually, you could debate that also because it's pretty bad in
Ghaziabad is even
Ghaziabad
worse.
is bad. Look at some of the cities in Haryana which are close to those coal finds. You know, matches are being called off in Lucknow because there's fog, but actually it's actually all 400 AQI also. So it is across the board. So let's be clear on that. Would you agree that it is not just a Delhi problem, it's a wider problem?
So, see, Vikram, there are two kinds of problems on air pollution, and let's be clear. There is something called the Indo-Gangetic Plain problem, okay? Now, why is the Indo-Gangetic Plain together? I mean, that is from all the way up to Calcutta. All that entire region is equally bad. And the reason is that this is the Indo-Gangetic Plain, where during winter, the cold air settles, you have a kind of a bowl type of approach, you have a lot of water in the fields, you essentially are creating conditions in which earlier on it was fog and now it has become smog because you're burning everything which is very poor quality. Now, if you look at Bengaluru or if you look at Mumbai, they also have an air pollution problem, but Mumbai has the sea which washes it away. Bengaluru has the rain, the wind which washes it away, but they're equally polluted, but you don't feel it as much. And then, of course, you have the hot spots, like you have people living next to a thermal power plant, or you have people living next to a mine. Now, when you and I, middle class,
or an
complain,
intersection in cities like
yeah,
Delhi.
but you know, we are still much more fortunate than the poor people who live near really bad pollution sources. And I think what people in Delhi need to understand is why is clean air so important. If we understand it, we have to fight for it for the entire country. You can't say that I want clean air, but let my factories move outside Delhi because they don't deserve it. And be very clear, all that we did in the 90s to move the factories outside Delhi, that air is still coming back to us.
So you've got to clean it up at the source is one major
Very
thing that has to be kept in
Yes.
mind. The other thing, obviously, that has to be tracked is that we need to be very clear on what the problem is and where it is coming from. Because if you don't know what the problem is, then it's very difficult to fix it. Part of that issue has also become, that's why it was such a political, football for almost 8-9 years, because you say, oh, pollution is coming because of Diwali. And then that became another issue. How can Diwali be causing it? Because what happens to the rest of the year? And that became an issue. Then you say, okay, it's stubble burning. Then that becomes a Aam Aadmi Party, BJP, Congress fighting, Delhi, Punjab, all of those politics comes into it. Your report and other studies have shown that, look, obviously Diwali is one day and it then fades, and then stubble burning is 1 month and then that fades. But here we are in December, there's no Diwali, there's no stubble burning right now, but there is still very bad air pollution. So it's clearly not the entire problem.
No, Diwali and stubble burning, as I keep saying, are episodal pollution which tip us over. Now, be very clear about this, Vikram, and I think that's why it's important we're having this conversation. This is all known, okay? The question is, we have tried to play football with it and, push the problem away somewhere else. Good thing is now it's coming home. Let's focus on it. Let's be clear, every source is a problem. I call it a 1% problem. Everyone is there. Every source needs to be dealt with. You need a clear action plan for it. You need to deal with it. Stubble burning definitely tips us over. This year Punjab had floods, so the amount of stubble burning was less. But the year before, and it all depends on the wind direction, on particular days, stubble burning can contribute up to 25% of Delhi's pollution. Now that's big, okay?
Yeah.
You're already choking and you get this huge amount of noxious air coming in. Think about it like a cup. Cup is already overflowing with pollution and now you're adding more to it. Obviously you're going to drown. Now, that's what we need to deal with. You need to deal with stubble burning. Diwali, very clearly, it comes at a time when you're getting winter coming in, you're already driving like mad to get all your presents out, getting to meet people, your
Traffic
air
is clogged.
full, clogged, and then you go and burn crackers. Now, I have nothing against crackers. I mean, you and I have grown up in Delhi, we've enjoyed the anars and the puljaris and everything else. To me, it's not about Hindu religion, it is about fun and joy of a family. But the fact is, today's air, either, I keep saying every time I'm asked, you said, yeah, clean up the air first, stop traffic for 10 days, create space for us to enjoy crackers on Diwali. No problem. Yeah. So it's nothing to do with religion, nothing to do with crackers, it's to do with the right to breathe.
So those and those days tip it over. And it's interesting also to understand that this miraculous wave that happens, that it seems all clear and beautiful, February till October, and then suddenly in November it happens. It's for two reasons. There's base level air pollution which is happening through the year.
All the time.
These couple of things are coming to tip it over.
Yeah.
And then the other thing which you said, that is also happens to be the time when the winds stop blowing.
And the winter steps in, the cold settles. It's simple. When you put cold water over hot, what happens? It just settles. Nah? The cold layer on top. Now there's no ventilation index, so that you look at Delhi even today. The only reason we are literally Ram Bharose now, okay? कि अगर वो वायु भगवान ने हमें, if we get Pavan Bhagwan to work for a little while, we get wind, he will blow away the pollution. So we are literally creating, we have to think about ourselves that winter is the reason, you have to act so much, Vikram, that winter pollution goes away. Because winter is when weather turns adverse and therefore pollution will be much worse, and that's a period we have to clean up.
And again, I'm coming back to the fact that the reason why the two things come together is, before cropping patterns changed in places like Punjab, if the stubble burning was actually happening in the month of, let's say, September.
It does. Actually, let's be clear. Let's get these facts right. So stubble burning, you never felt it, I never felt it. Nothing. It's only been the last 10 years, 15 years. It started, I remember very clearly, around 2006, first time we noticed it. Why? Because, for good reason, because groundwater levels in Punjab were going down, farmers were prohibited from growing paddy before the 10th of June. Because they were growing it earlier in May, and that meant 3 watering before monsoons came in. So there was a delay in growing the paddy. Because there's a delay in growing the paddy, there's a delay in harvesting the paddy. Earlier on, paddy used to be harvested in September. Retreating monsoons used to take it away. You and I never felt it.
So that's the point I'm making, because this way one small effect can have other things. Now they are burning the stubble at a time when the winds are trapping it here. And it hangs here. Otherwise, the retreating monsoon would have taken the smoke away.
In April, you don't feel it. April is when the wheat straw is burnt. Equally bad. You don't feel it. So, you know, there is a weather issue, and Delhi has to understand that its geography determines the actions it has to take. Either you say, like Tughlaq did, that I'll remove Delhi and take it somewhere else. Or Tughlaq
no, you can't, because the entire Indo-Gangetic belt has got like 500 million people living in it. Uttar Pradesh has 300 million. They all are suffering. So you can't take the entire population of India and put it somewhere. There's no place which you can put it to. So you've got to fix the problem. And that means you've got to start addressing the root causes of the problem. Now, when we come to an action plan, which is what I'm going to start driving towards, there are two aspects to it. One is short-term emergency immediate measures.
Yes.
You, for example, are very influential in things like GRAP and other things, and how do you get this thing done. Now, you may need to do emergency measures when it is 400 outside, like it is right now, right?
Yes.
So you need to do emergency measures, but it should be very clear that what you're really doing out here is you're putting, you know, Band-Aid on gangrene. You are sort of trying to have a headache when you're suffering from cancer. I mean, I hate to use dark metaphors, but you need a dark metaphor. So you still need these emergency measures, but it's not the solution. Would you agree?
Absolutely, Vikram. In fact, we took the idea of GRAP to court, to Supreme Court, and we had got it done in 2017. And the reason was that we wanted, and it's been done other parts of the world as well, it has been done as a measure to help to clean up, was that when pollution is very high, you want to just put water on that fire to get it down. It was an alert measure. And you need to do that as an emergency action. But the idea with GRAP is, and that's how it is practiced in other parts of the world, is because it is so inconvenient to close schools, stop trucks at the border of Delhi, ban construction, stop people from going to work, it inconveniences people. You realize I need to act through the year so that I don't need to take the emergency measure. Sadly, and I think this is the tragedy, that we have taken GRAP to be a proxy for action. It is not a proxy for action. GRAP is an emergency alert measure it's a smog alert measure which should be phased out, because you don't need to do this.
So this is only, as I'm saying, this is an emergency measure. You're choking in order to do this, but eventually none of these are solutions, right? Oh, we're going to do cloud seeding and,
cloud seeding and all that. Also the science of cloud seeding, please. I think some point, as media, you should ask IIT professors, what did they think of when they sold this idea to politicians that you can cloud seed? Let's understand the science of it and stop the charades. I've written this clearly. Stop these charades.
Would you add smog towers and other things also to charades?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Stop the charades. Biodecomposer, smog tower, cloud seeding, all these macho stuff where, we're mesmerized. We're sending planes up there to cloud seed. Please understand, you need enough rain to wash off the pollutants. You need wind after that. In fact, if you have only rain, you will have more moisture in the air, which will trap more pollutants. Stop playing God. So let's be clear. I really hope that the cloud seeding experiment is the last of it, and that we will see more serious action going forward. I don't know.
So smog towers, sprinklers may help. Some little impact here and there, odd even, all of these things are Band-Aids.
See, odd even is an emergency measure done well. So what was our problem with the AAP government? We had suggested odd even as an emergency measure used in other parts of the world. When you are in real crisis, you bring it in. But then you can't have these exemptions. Ki two-wheeler be allowed hai, pregnant woman is allowed, woman driver is allowed, this is allowed. Then you have to, it's a pollution measure. Then you have to say very clearly, sorry, stop. So these are again emergency measures which can be learned from and done. But please, Vikram, it's time we move beyond the emergency, beyond the crisis, into solutions which will help us to breathe.
Okay, that's a perfect cue for me to go from emergency measures, which is all of this stuff that keeps making the headlines, is all good in emergency. Now let's find some practical solutions. Let's try to brainstorm for the rest of this program an action plan that can actually improve the situation in, let's say, 2 years or 3 years, right? Let's give ourselves some time to do it. And
no
we can
problem.
even there prioritize what will make an immediate difference and what will not. For starters, let's come back to the crux of the question. Where is the long-term problem coming from? We've just agreed and decided that there was some seasonal... Look, you can't affect the weather. The weather is going to be there. But setting the weather aside, the sources of the problem, they are these seasonal issues that add to the weather, like stubble burning, and other things, which tip us over. But the base load is whatever it is. Let's start with Delhi. Let's try and find a solution to Delhi, and then some of these things can be extended
All
elsewhere.
of them can be extended.
Can be extended to other parts also. But let's use Delhi as a test case for solving the problem. You've done a lot of studies on this. What's causing the problem?
So there are 4 major sources. Let's focus on them because they are the big ticket items, okay? There is vehicles, and let's accept the fact that vehicles is a major source of pollution in this region, in Delhi, across. So because it's combustion. So combustion, keep your eyes on combustion. Wherever you burn, if the quality of fuel is poor and if the emissions are high, then you will get pollution. That's a simple science of pollution. In that, vehicles are your major source, and we can discuss which ones, why, all the rest, but let's accept vehicles. The second major source is industry. Now, you will say to me, but Sunita, there are no industries in Delhi. That's not the case. In India, what has happened is industrial pollution is all in small industrial units. They are not in authorized industrial units. They have moved out of that because of the fear of the regulator. They have actually moved to unauthorized areas. Or they are even in authorized areas, but they use dirty quality fuel. What do they use? Largely coal, okay? Poor quality coal or some biomass, because now there are restrictions on coal. But there is no enforcement, there is no real check on the pollution. You have brick kilns, you're basically industrial pollution. The third major source is waste burning. Now, again, why should waste be burnt? Because we have no system. We basically... there are cities in India which are doing remarkably well on waste management, but we are not in this region. And as a result of it, when waste is littered, it's burnt or is burnt in the unmanaged landfill sites that we have. So waste is the third reason. The fourth is really all your other sources of thermal power plants, which I would put into the industry, but the thermal power plants around this region contribute to the pollution. Brick kilns, stone crushers contribute to this pollution. And then is household fuel. Those are the reasons why this region is polluted. Then, of course, you have the stubble burning, which we should also discuss because we need answers to it. That then becomes the additional thing that we have to act on. But these 6 is where we need to keep our sights on.
6 sources of burning, which we have to address one by one. And then there's the question of dust, which comes into it, which is more of a PM10 issue.
No, but dust is important. Absolutely, dust is there, and it adds, particularly, dust is not a pollutant, but in our part of the world, because of the kind of combustion, toxins that you have, that coats the dust, and therefore it becomes a pollutant. And yes, PM10, but also you have finer dust particles, PM2.5, and it is bad. So dust, yes, dust.
And I just wanted to add to one thing which you were saying when you were looking at the sources of the problem. People, you can say, oh, we moved the coal, thermal power plants outside Delhi, so it should be fine, and you moved it away. A, the people there are getting affected. B, if you look at the most recent statistics, something like 16% of the pollution in Delhi is coming from one district of Haryana. Why? Because Jhajjar happens to have a coal-fired power plant. So that smoke travels.
It's
it does not
airshed.
respect
It does not respect boundaries.
It does not respect the boundary that this coal plant is in Haryana, so it should only affect Haryana. No, it comes to Delhi, it then blow into Uttar Pradesh. So you've got to figure out the problem
Which is why we
holistically.
took to the court some years ago and got a court order that the thermal power plants, so Delhi, has closed down Rajghat IP power plant. It moved its power plants to gas. Good work done. Gas, unfortunately, is unavailable, so those plants are working at low capacity. But Delhi has large number of power plants in its radius, the airshed of Delhi. Now, there is a clear court order which says, and there is a government direction that says, all these power plants are prioritized and have to move to emission control systems. They have to have a NOx control, a SOx control, and a PM control system. That order was passed in 2015 to be implemented in 2017. You and I are sitting at the end of 2025, Vikram, and all government has done is to defer and delay the deadlines.
Why? Surely this is an immediate, fast action that can be taken. I mean, let's just look at percentages. What amount of the percentage of pollution in Delhi would, for example, be coming from
Impossible to tell.
Industrial and thermal power plants and others?
Roughly, vehicles is about 40, industry, thermal power plants would be around 20 to 30, depending on where and what season. And where the wind is blowing from, and then of course you have waste burning and all the other sources. So you need to keep your focus. If you want big ticket, if you want small ticket spraying, dust spray, you can keep focusing on your dust mechanical cleaners and sprinklers. If you want big ticket answers, like we did in CNG, in the case of CNG in 1998, implemented in 2001, a transformation. You need to have a vacuum cleaner for Delhi, which is of the size, which is going to clean the air to that extent that even the small sources that get added in, you won't have a problem. You need to have I don't know what to call it, a super vacuum cleaner.
Or stop polluting it in the first place.
Or stop vacuum cleaner, meaning that you need to have a vacuum cleaner which stops the pollution from happening at that scale.
Okay. Now, I'm just going to look at you straight and just sort of outline the sources of the problem, right? And we've sort of got rough numbers around them. Keep that in mind, because if you're coming up with an action plan, you've got to be very clear, this is what is causing the problem. So let's take a look, first of all, at transportation and transportation-related burning. That's about, let's say, 30%, maybe 40% of the air pollution. So you solve that, that's, more than a third of the battle. Then you've got industrial burning, power plants, coal burning plants, which are in the entire vicinity and in the airshed. That's, let's say, another 20%, 25% or thereabouts. You've got dust, which is out here. Can you fix the dust, which is, let's say, 10, 15, 20% is constituted by dust. Then you've got the other areas like waste burning. Then you've got people burning, household burning, which Ujjwala and others are supposed to take care of. So all of that sort of burning comes inside. And then you have stubble burning, which causes major issues at particular points of the year. That's roughly some of the problem.
Very well put. Absolutely.
All right. So that's the problem. Let's now find a solution to each of them. All right, let's come to the agenda items. Agenda item number 1, because transportation, as we've just said, is the single biggest one. Let's start rethinking transportation a little bit to see what are the big bang measures that can be taken to actually fix that 30-40% of the air pollution. What do you think we should do?
So, when you take transportation, you have to understand that transportation has different segments to it. And what you need to do now is to first identify which segment is the worst for pollution and what is the answer to that segment. Now, how does a car pollute or a truck pollute? Let's also understand that. It is basically based on 2 factors, or maybe 3 if you really want to get very scientific. One is, when was the vehicle produced? And the reason for that is there was an emission norm of that period. So was it a BS2 vehicle, BS3 vehicle, BS4, BS5 or 6? Because we have made them more stringent, the vehicles pollute less. 2, it will depend on however clean your vehicle is. If it moves large distances, it will pollute a lot because it is about the kilometer traveled, not just the standard. And then it is about the deterioration. So you may produce something very clean, but you run it a lot and it deteriorates, then you basically have a large amount of pollution. So if that's the science of it, then let's look at three categories. The first big category is basically public transport vehicles, buses and taxis. They travel large distances. So a taxi or a bus in Delhi, the latest data tells us, and not just Delhi, but because it's, remember, it's the whole region is one. You're talking about 200 to 300 kilometers a day. Now that's huge, okay? So, and then if you have, even if it's a CNG bus or a CNG taxi, if it is an old CNG bus taxi and it travels these long distances, the pollution goes up. So that's one category. You need to look at that, and then I'll tell you what we need to do with it. The second category is your commercial vehicles, your trucks. I'm taking taxis and buses out of it, taking that as paratransit and public transport. You have trucks, large trucks coming in. Now, you have built the Eastern Western Peripheral Expressway, but still trucks really end up polluting a lot, because unless you move them to BS6 trucks, between a BS4 and a BS6 there's a 90% reduction in the emission standard of trucks. So that's your second big category. The third, and that's the most difficult one, Vikram, is personal transport. Now, we don't travel that much per kilometer, each one of us, depending on an average, it's seen to be about 50 kilometers a day now, because, Noida, Delhi, Faridabad, Gurgaon, but that's roughly what people do. But the numbers are explosive. I mean, we are adding 500 new cars a day in Delhi itself, 1,500 new two-wheelers a day in Delhi. So even if I have a BS6 car and I'm adding 10 times more cars, that BS6 may be 10 times better, added 10 times more, impact negated. So that's the third category, and that's the personal vehicle category. So public transport, commercial and personal, each one needs its own strategy.
Okay, and can I just say a couple of things to add to that, because they do then help each other. If your public transport is vastly improved, not just the buses and the taxis and the other things, but also your metro and feeder services, it reduces the need for personal transport.
So the third category, so let's take, because we are doing an action agenda, let's take each category. So what would you do with the pollution from buses and taxis and three-wheelers, critical transport system of this region? One, I would augment the number. We have 10,000 buses, was dictated by the court, directed by the court in 1998. We still have 5,000, 6,000 buses in Delhi, and they were bought during the Commonwealth game time. Their life is over. We need a massive augmentation, but I would argue with you,
do it electric,
move them all electric. Yes. Move everything to electric. That category of bus, taxi, auto should be 100%, not one or two, not this sort of, I brought in a nice electric bus. You and I are very fancy people. We buy a SUV with the electric car, all that. Please stop.
All public, so let's just say, and I'm just trying to figure out how much it's going to cost. Let's say buy 15,000, 10,000 or 15,000
for this region, I would argue you need to buy at least 20,000, big and small.
Because you're trying to remove, we're getting to the other part of it.
We'll come to that.
We'll come to the car part. But I'm saying the reason why this becomes important is because I'm now trying to think of it as a slightly bigger picture. If you're just buying more buses and putting them into the streets, without reducing the amount of private transport car vehicles that there are out there, you're just having more traffic jam.
No,
now you said the distance that you travel, if you're stopped if you're stuck in traffic, then all of that is emission that is coming out constantly.
More than that, Vikram, you've hit the nail on the head. Please understand it from another perspective. Today, Delhi is buying electric buses, and which is good. Please don't get this wrong. But our ridership in buses is going down. Okay, why? Because the same bus is caught in congestion. You ask anyone, I ask my own office people, every office says you have to come to work at a particular time. Now, if you come to work at a particular time, I can't be stuck in traffic.
Yes.
I'm going to move to a two-wheeler, I'm going to move to a taxi, I'm going to move to a car, I'm going to move to a metro. But let's take the agenda one.
No, so I'm
Agenda
just coming to
one
the
is-
agenda one. So, which is what?
Agenda one is take the entire segment of public transport and move it to electric and have a clear plan to move the taxis, the autos and the buses at scale to electric, number one. That would be my first top agenda. Don't do itsy bitsy electric, move like we did with CNG. Every bus moved to CNG, every auto rickshaw moved to CNG. This is your segment for electric.
Okay. Let's just keep on talking about this, and I'm adding my Vikram amendment to the Sunita CSE plan of what are you going to do about the first and the third category. Let's see if we can solve for both the first and the third, which
Absolutely.
is public transport, buses, scooters and taxis, which you're saying should move entirely to electric, and I agree
Not
with that.
scooters, I'm talking about three-wheelers,
Three-wheelers. I'm
paratransit.
talking about transport, not mass
Fine,
transport.
fine. Then we're on the
mass
same.
transport
Yeah.
and commercial vehicles, because you want to reduce the number of commercial vehicles coming.
I'll come to commercial. I have a separate plan for them.
Okay, so let me
let's call this public transport vehicles.
Public transport and personal vehicles,
So
right?
now we are coming to personal. Now there is only one answer to personal, Vikram, and that's the toughest one. You have to drive less, okay? But you cannot drive less unless you augment your public transport system. This is that chicken and egg, okay? And you have to do this. So you have to understand, why is it when you and I travel abroad, we will take a bus, we will take a metro, we will take the congestion charge that is there in London because they have alternatives. You cannot have restrictions on private transport unless you have a modern and convenient transport for the rich to get off their car and affordable enough for the poor to get onto it out of their cycles. That's the scaling up. It's think of Singapore, think of Beijing, think of the scale that you could do, and look at the money that industry could make. Instead of buying some cars, think of the buses we could produce.
So let me just come to the Vikram corollary to the Sunita CSE action plan. I'm just trying to figure out a way that can we look at public transportation in a even bigger scale, because it's only when it is really convenient to use public transport that where people stop buying cars. If you're going to say, oh, don't use your car, instead go and walk for 1 kilometer through the slush in a place where there's no pavement, somehow catch a metro, get off there, don't have a last mile drop, people will say, how am I going to do this? There's no point buying an electric bus if that bus is going to be stuck in the same traffic jam.
I agree with you completely. The Vikram corollary, the addition is absolutely bang on. You have to understand public transport is about scale. It is about integration. You cannot take a bus if you can't cross the road. If you don't have safety for women, you cannot take a metro if you can't walk to a metro. Today, the price of a metro is expensive because you have to take first a taxi to get to the metro station and then an auto beyond. And you need it scaled up, the entire region. Today, maximum transport is not in Delhi. It is between Delhi and Gurgaon, between Noida and Gurgaon.
Exactly.
You need to think about, this entire region is one conglomerate now.
So the good news is that you're getting things like the rapid rail coming,
Yes.
which you're going to take
Which
further away.
I thank, please give me some. Actually, we took this to Supreme Court and the Supreme Court agreed on the rapid rail. 15 years too late though, because the rapid rail was first proposed in 1998.
But I know that you're getting all of this done, which is why we're having this conversation with you. And that's why I'm adding my own corollaries. I'm adding my own corollaries to your action plan.
Nevertheless, we can still work together.
So rapid rail is coming, right?
Yes.
You've got a metro, which is already reasonably large,
Wonderful.
and more phases are going to come.
Yeah.
Fundamentally, the crux of the problem, at least to my mind, is that from the metro station, you can't get to your house. And if you can't solve that problem, no one's going to be using public transport. That's the crux of the problem, right?
Yeah.
So why can't we have a system where, in addition to the metro, you fix the last mile problem by saying, A, you have feeder bus services which are taking you to the metro lines or to the RRTS stations. B, from every metro station, you have a fleet of electric three-wheelers or small taxis that are ferrying you within 3 kilometers of the metro station.
Yeah.
Maybe you add it to the metro, maybe make it one integrated ticket,
Yes,
right? So the metro plus
absolutely.
that. So now someone's collecting you from your house, taking you to the metro station, you're doing the long journey, or on a RRTS, you can come in all the way from Meerut or Manesar or wherever you're coming in from. And then from the metro station, you're being dropped to your office. The minute that system happens, you have now got a holistic solution.
Absolutely.
How's the Vikram corollary?
No, it perfect. And you need to make sure, and for that my only thing would be that you need to make sure that you're parking for the two-wheelers and the three-wheelers in the metro stations. You have a proper system so that people feel safe taking it. You have good quality paratransit. Today the paratransit system, paratransit is what is called transit, which is not public transport, but the transit which takes you to the last mile, what you and I are talking about. The feeder bus system, the three-wheeler, the cycle rickshaw, your own cycle parking. You can park your cycle at a metro station and cycle back. You should be able to walk from a metro station at least a kilometer to get home. You do that anywhere else in the world. It's part of what you need to do. We have to understand the integrated nature by bringing in and I'm glad we're discussing this, Vikram, because sadly, public transport, when you talk about it, it's become about counting the number of buses that have been brought into the road. And we have to move beyond it.
If you don't decongest the roads, those buses are useless,
and
right?
You need to talk about public transport as an integrated
So
system.
the feeder services, by the way, don't just have to be electric scooters and, electric three-wheelers or electric small cars. You could also have, if from the metro stations you have, and then there is a new transit-oriented development policy which is coming.
Yes.
But in any case, if you say that from the metro stations there are pavements, walkable pavements that can take you to colonies and bicycle tracks. By the way, you can build a bicycle track. If you look at the map of Delhi, there was a plan which I don't know what happened to it. You could go from one end of Delhi to the other end of Delhi without ever seeing any
along the
construction.
nalas. You just have to
nalas.
clean the
They are
nalas
green
up.
parks. They are parks. You can go from the airport all the way to Rajghat without ever, because they are parks. Now, if you could do security and you build cycling tracks there, people will actually use it. Connect that to the metro stations.
Absolutely.
So that again becomes something that is personally viable. Now, the biggest advantage, I think, of rethinking public transport is, if you've done this, then there's no real necessity for you to use private transport. Now what you can do is put a congestion charge.
Yes.
You don't have to do it. You can't put a congestion charge if the people don't have an option, but you say, look, we're giving you a perfectly acceptable world-class public transportation system. Now if you're choosing to drive a private car,
then
fine.
you pay for
pay
it.
10,000 a year as congestion charges. Something really high. Like London has done.
Whatever. You can do that. Beijing has done that. London has done that. Singapore has done it. Every city today is trying this out to say, but you cannot put restrictions on private transport unless you seriously, as you and I are discussing, augment the public transport system so that we get the right to walk, the right to cycle, the right to take a bus and the right to take a metro, and it's all connected. Then I can tell people, then you can tell people, pay higher parking charges if you take your car out. Today, that is the one tool that we cannot use because people say, oh, but what are my options? And it's true.
The other big benefit of actually doing something like this is that if a lot more people are coming onto public transportation, including these feeder buses, you can have then an electric Uber or electric, cab system where people are being picked up. Today I'm in a bit of a rush, I'll take it. But you're not thinking about, in London, you don't think about having private transport, right? New York, you don't think about private transport. Singapore, you don't think about it. Most places you don't. The advice that Beijing has just given, the Chinese are now giving advice. They said, look, this is what we did, and this is what really made a major impact to Beijing. So people don't think of having their private transport. The other big benefit to this is, it sorts out the other major thing that makes Delhi into a hellhole, which is the traffic. Because now you're using all of these services, the number of vehicles on the roads goes down. It also has an impact on pollution because you're not stuck in traffic jams and that
and
constant...
just think about the mental harassment, think about the time that we waste, which we can't spend with our families, the quality of life that is going down. And think about it from a pollution perspective. We can map congestion to pollution. And your NOx pollution, your CO pollution goes up as soon as you see congestion. So it's a no-brainer, Vikram, and it's time we did that, not just in Delhi, but in every small city of India, which is not even beginning to motorize. We can do it now.
And any amount of money, I suspect, let's say it costs a lot. Let's say it costs 30,000 crore rupees to do this in Delhi. It's worth it. You'll probably make up that money in health charges within 2 years or 3 years.
In any case, what are you spending on? Let's break it down. You're spending on transport, which means that industry will gain. Okay, you make more buses, you make better quality buses, you have huge markets across the world. Everyone is looking for it. Okay, you basically make sure that you are the leader in manufacturing, not just private cars. You can do that. I don't fight that, because I find if I fight that, then everybody jumps on me and says, why?
Have private cars.
Have private cars. Just keep it in your house. Use the size of your car to get married, because that seems to be the status symbol to get you a good marriage deal. I mean, that's the sad part of India right now, but do all that. I'm not fighting that. If that's what makes you happy, buy your car. But don't take it out, because you have an alternative. And you can make money out of it. The economy grows. More connectivity. Today, please understand what you have done. You have built Delhi all the way to Sona, Manesar, beyond. How do people commute? The poor commute. You're basically taking away the right to livelihood. So employment, livelihood, growth, all that depends on connectivity.
Okay. So we have a consensus.
Yes.
Revitalizing, revamping your public transportation system
at scale
is action item number 1, which we can agree on. Action item number 2 would be the second part of what you said, which is commercial vehicles. What would you do in commercial vehicles? I suspect that's almost like a no-brainer.
Again, that's a no-brainer, only because, see, when we did the CNG work, we basically moved all diesel buses to CNG. Now you have an option that your BS6 trucks are much cleaner than BS4, BS3, 90% cleaner. So what you should do is to come up with a good scrappage program, a well-managed scrappage program, in which you incentivize the truck owner to buy the new truck, which will also increase your sale of trucks, good trucks in the country. But the added benefit of that is that if you can collect all the scrap, you basically use it for your iron and steel industry to decarbonize. So you have to plan this well. It's a circular economy issue. You have to plan it well. You can't do it like, I've asked some trucks to move to BS6. No, I have a plan. These are my BS2 trucks, my BS3 trucks, because everything is known in government, because you have registration numbers. You have the year of registration. So my first phase out is my BS2. So many number of trucks. This is the incentive. Banks will give loans which are much cheaper. Industry will give a rebate on the new truck. That money will go for scrappage. The scrappage will go to iron and steel, which will pay for the cost of it. So you plan this for commercial vehicles. That would be my third part of the plan.
Okay, so the interesting part of this entire aspect of what we've just been discussing, if you're doing a proper scrappage policy, it also solves the personal transportation more than 5 years, more than 10 years. Yeah. If you've done the public transportation system,
I don't believe age on private transport is going to be the answer, because we are a poor country, and I don't believe that you can get people to buy new cars, and at the end of the day, that's not my answer. Please be very clear, Vikram. We have never ever suggested scrapping of personal cars based on age. Okay. We have asked for an improvement in the PUC system, in the inspection and maintenance system, but never scrappage of personal cars, because I don't think that's an answer for a country like India.
Okay, so the solution that we're coming with right now, we've done 2 agenda items. One, move people and not vehicles.
That's right.
That's almost word for word what you said in one of in your report. Number 2 is fixing commercial vehicles. Yes. That again solves the problem. Yeah. Let's now come to industrial pollution, which is perhaps number 3 when it comes to it. Now, it baffles us that you don't actually have those systems. They're all complicated acronyms that are used, but all thermal power plants and industrial units should have the pollution control mechanisms that are removing PM 2.5, removing sulfur dioxide, removing nitrogen dioxide. Why can't this be done in a time-bound manner?
So let's take two. One is thermal power plants, and then let's take the remaining industry, because there are two separate solutions for them. Thermal power plants order has been given. As I said, in 2015, the union government said that thermal power plants have to move to advanced emission control systems. We are now sitting in 2026 almost. They were supposed to be implemented in 2017. The Supreme Court has also mandated it, but every time the deadline is deferred. Why? Because, pollution is not the central issue why you will act. But I think that is a no-brainer. It can be done, must be done. It will only, you have to put in FGD, you have to put, so basically SOx control, NOx control, and PM control. And an added advantage there, which NTPC in fact is doing, and NTPC, let's be clear, give it credit, public sector undertaking has been first off the block. It is not the resistance. So in this case, it is not public sector which is resisting it.
But isn't public sector doing most of the power plants are public sector?
But in this case, NTPC is actually moved fastest to put in emission control systems, including now using biomass to mix with coal so that you reduce the amount of pollution that you have. So thermal power is one. Industry is a larger one, I would argue, also because this is like thermal power plants, you have about 11 plants in this region. So it's relatively easier to control and relatively easier to do. The bigger challenge is the scale of small industry in this region. You and I don't notice it because these are hidden. They're hidden in unauthorized areas, they are polluting, they are using coal. Even if coal is banned in Delhi, it is used in these units because they don't have an alternative. My solution to this, and I've been arguing this for the last 5-6 years, is bring natural gas under GST and make gas cheaper than coal. We did this when it came to the move to CNG. We took it to court to say diesel is what we were arguing against. We said the price of CNG has to be cheaper than diesel. And the court mandated it. Why can't we bring, I'm not asking for, listen, I know GST is complicated and I know all states, petroleum and diesel is their major source of revenue. But gas is only the revenue of 2 states of India, Kerala and Gujarat, only 2 states. So you can actually compensate those 2 states, bring gas under GST. It's a 50% taxation on GST, on gas right now, even higher in certain cases because there's state taxes. Remove all that, flood this region with gas so that industry moves to gas.
Basically, we're saying change the fuel for industry. So there are 2 paths of fixing industrial pollution, if I'm understanding this action point correctly. Number 1 is making sure that all polluting plants and others have basic pollution control systems installed in it. That is something which I'm sure the court can also order, and it could be done in a year or 2 years.
No, it's already been ordered, needs to be done.
It needs to be implemented. And the second part is you're saying move the fuel from coal to natural gas. Figure out a way to do it. Provide it in a piped manner.
It's already,
give economic
pipes
rationales.
Are there. There are distribution agents there. You need to make sure the price of gas is too high. See, if you're in industry, Vikram, your fuel cost is an important part of your competitiveness. If you don't have the cost of fuel under control, you will not be competitive, which means, and I would love industry to move to electricity, but we know how variable electricity is, the price of electricity, which is why all industry in this region across India is dependent on captive power, boilers. So let's give them clean fuel at competitive rates. Tell them that if they use gas, they don't have to shut down in winter. No inspector will come. But I will add one more item to this. If you look at Beijing and you look at Delhi and you look at this region, one of the biggest problems we have today is that we have completely dismembered our pollution control boards. They are not staffed, they do not have people, they do not have authority, and they're treated with complete contempt. अरे आएगा उसको पैसा दे देंगे चला जाएगा.
Same with PUC certificates when you're driving
Exactly.
a car.
You need smart governance, monitoring. Beijing had 90,000 pollution control inspectors for that.
Who were actually doing
region.
pollution control, not just going there to get the hafta.
But you don't need to get them to do hafta. You have all sorts of, you can have monitors connected to GPS. I've gone there, I've checked the level, it's connected to a GPS. You can have smart monitoring systems, you can improve your governance, but you cannot get rid of the regulator. You cannot tell me that regulators are not needed because I am a good industry and I will regulate myself. It doesn't work like
Not
that.
on pollution, you have to.
Not on pollution.
I'm a great believer in deregulation, but maybe pollution is an exception. All right, 3 agenda items done. Let's go to agenda item number 4, which is, of course, what always captures the headlines, which is stubble.
Dust. Stubble.
Stubble. I'll come to dust as agenda item number 5. Stubble. What do we do about stubble?
So a huge amount of work has happened on this. So why do farmer burn stubble? Because they have a very short window. They need to burn the stubble to be able to plant their wheat. That is the reason. They're not mad people. They're doing it because that's their reason for doing it. How would you provide them an alternative? You provide them by pricing the stubble, giving them a value for the stubble. Okay? When you give them a value for the stubble, you also need to make sure that it can be transported, which means you need to bale the stubble. You need to make sure that it is then used. Today in India, there is an incredible amount of work, and give it credit, huge amount of work that has happened where HPCL is setting up an ethanol plant based on stubble. A number of people are setting up bio-CNG plants based on stubble. Stubble is now being used also in thermal power plants to reduce the amount of coal that is used. Stubble can also be put back into the soil to improve the soil carbon, which becomes a carbon mitigation measure, for which you can get carbon credits. Answers are there, Vikram. We are not scaling it up. We are not determined.
So till now the approach has been happy seeders and other things.
All
and how
that
do you
is
reduce
part
that?
of it.
Do that, but you are saying give a price, 250 rupees per quintal, something like that. Put a price to stubble, so now you're not burning it.
Yeah, and even if you do a happy seeder, what is a happy seeder? A happy seeder basically plows back the stubble into the soil. It's very important because it improves the soil carbon. I would add to it a carbon credit scheme. So the farmer who uses a happy seeder, and you have a measure to check the carbon that has been stored in the soil, you basically give the farmer so much more money for it. So the problem is not the answer here, Vikram. Again, my problem is nobody is implementing this with the obsession and the determination it needs. We have a brilliant scheme from the Government of India called Satarth. I don't know if you've heard of it. Okay? It's by the Ministry of Petroleum, MOPNG. It's a scheme to basically say that they will buy back the gas at the rates of CNG from biomass produced bio-CNG at proper rates. Okay? You have a scheme, and if you look at the viability of these plants, if you add to it the use of what is called the liquid manure that comes out of these plants make money, which means if I buy stubble from a farmer, and I have to buy the stubble because it's my raw material, I have to bale it, I have to buy it, I can make CNG out of it, I can sell it, and then in that entire area, I'm only dependent on CNG. You know, Vikram, the answers should excite us. They are possible to do.
So okay, fine. So stubble has been discussed at great length. It's reasonably obvious. You know what has to be done. Let's just hope they do it. I want to move to item number 5 and then item number 6. Item number 5, let's just close all the combustion related things, right? Because so far all of this has been combustion. Item number 5 would be other types of combustion, which is your chula and others at home, which actually relatively simple to fix. You just extend Ujjwala, give more cylinders. So 12 free cylinders if you give in a year, politically very popular, it ends all cooking. Relatively simple.
I mean, Ujjwala is a brilliant scheme of the government. I mean, I love the fact that the Prime Minister went out and said, let the middle class give up the subsidy, let it go to the poor. It's a great scheme. Problem is the poor are so poor that they can't buy a refill. So can you add to the number of free cylinders?
Add to the free cylinders, that's a simple problem to solve. Guards burning, leaves at night. Simple problem to solve. I mean,
Again, I would
simple.
argue with
Get
you.
the RWAs to give them
Yeah,
heaters.
and I would also argue with you. अगर एक कोई गरीब अगर जला भी रहा है, उसको survival emission करके छोड़ दो. Deal
Fix
with
the
the
bigger
bigger
problem.
problems. Deal with the bigger problems, Vikram. Create enough space in your air that a small person who's burning something to survive, you're not looking at them, you're looking outside your thing and saying, let me not take my car out.
Okay, so a bigger item would be the waste burning that is done in
That, yes.
landfills and garbage and all that. That has to come to a
That has
standstill.
to come to 100% no. And simple. I mean, you know the garbage story of India. I'm sure you do. We all do. 60% of the garbage from our houses is what is called wet garbage. Okay. Now, if you took that 60% out by doing composting, segregation composting, even you do it at home, you do it in a colony, you do it at the municipal level, you've taken 60% of your load off. Yeah. Then you're left with 40%, which you segregate, which you basically sell to a kabadi. You're then left with a small proportion of your garbage, which it all needs to be landfilled. Okay? Now, if you go to Indore, it's happening. You go to Ambikapur, it's happening. You go to Mahabaleshwar, it's happening. It's not happening in Delhi. It's not happening in Ghaziabad, not happening in Faridabad. Why can't we make this happen? The government of India's policy is segregate, segregate, segregate. Process, process, process.
Okay, let's come to the sixth and for the moment the final item, because I don't want to make it such a large thing that people say, this is a very confusing action plan. Let's keep it to sixth. Sixth item actually, in terms of the actual numbers that often show up, is very, very high, which is dust. Now, you could argue about how toxic it is compared to some of the other things, but dust is still 20%, right? 15, 20, 25% of the PM 2.5 and PM 10 is dust. How do you fix the dust? Look, certain amount of dust will blow from the Thar Desert. There's nothing you can do about it. But it's obvious if you drive around any Indian city, we don't have pavements. Yeah. There's nothing on the side of the road. Yeah. There's just dust lying there. If you actually have end-to-end paving, I would be shocked if that would not reduce the dust a lot. That's A. And B, instead of just sweeping the dust like this, which throws it back in the air, why don't we have vacuum mechanized cleaning, certainly in all your major arterial roads?
So we do have, in fact, if you look at the National Clean Air Action Program, under it, the maximum sale purchases have been of what they call mechanical sweepers. Very important. Please don't, I'm not underestimating it. But I think dust management requires more than just mechanical sweeping. We need to do what you're saying, make sure that there are no sources of dust. Make sure we do much more tree plantation. Make sure we do dust management. So you have construction activity. I love this phrase which I saw in an ad once, ki India is an under construction country. We are under construction all the time. Okay. Yeah. So I think dust management, you go anywhere else, if you do a new building, you will have layers to stop the dust from coming out. We need to make sure we have mandated it. We just don't enforce it. Okay. We need to make sure our roads don't have piles of dust and C&D waste lying everywhere, so that they fly and they add to the toxicity in the air. Dust is an important source, Vikram. Please don't, I'm not underestimating it, but it's about management. It's about governance. It's about making sure your municipal authorities, your road building authorities, your pollution control boards are given the power to make sure that the rules that are laid down are followed.
All right. Well, it's been an absolutely fantastic 1 hour where we've understood not just the problem, but also I think emerged with a 6-point action plan on which is a certain degree of consensus, at least between Sunita and me, if not the rest of the world. I'm just going to list it all out there for you, so it becomes an action point for all of you to keep in mind, and then I'm going to get Sunita to give her comments on it, final comments on it. So, what would be a 6-point action plan to actually clean up Delhi? Not just band-aid measures, but something that will transform air pollution in the National Capital Region within 1, 2, 3 years. So, action item number 1, rethink the public transport system. Upgrade public transport, have electric buses, have feeder lines and feeder vehicles which are going from the metro stations to last people to people's homes so that they don't have to use private transportation. Reduce private transport, move people, as CSE says, move people and not cars. The minute you're doing that effectively, that reduces a large part of the problem. Remember, transportation contributes to about 40% of all pollution in Delhi. Number two, fix commercial vehicles. They are commuting a lot, they're traveling a lot, many of them are contributing very seriously to emissions. So you've got to fix the commercial vehicle problem. Action item number three, industrial pollution. Number one, you've got to move to cleaner fuels like gas instead of using coal. Also solves your overall climate change and overall emission problems. And you've got to put better pollution control mechanisms on all the factories and all the industries that you have out there. Action item number four, stubble burning. Yes, it is not around the year, but it is something that tips the NCR over the edge when it comes to those critical months of November, December, January, which is when the weather changes and all pollutants are trapped. That's when stubble burning happens and it tips us over the edge. We know what the solutions are. You've got to fix stubble burning, perhaps by giving an economic value to the farmers for the value of their stubble so that they sell it instead of just burning it. And that's in addition to happy seeders and other such things. Item number five, figure out other forms of waste burning. Try and control them. Maybe give people more free gas cylinders under Ujjwala and other things so that there's clean energy that is being used for cooking. But basically also figure out all the burning of waste. Action item number five. Action item number six. And this is also important in terms of the total amount of PM 2.5 and PM 10 that there is out there in the air. This contributes a lot to it. It is dust. And you've got to figure out how do you fix the dust, by paving, by mechanical sweepers, by taking all the other steps like planting trees and other greenery around. Try and control the dust. This is one of the most immediate, one of the most dramatic ways that you can actually bring down those AQI numbers. A 6-point action plan, if this is implemented within a couple of years, you could start to see a major impact on air pollution in Delhi. Your comments on that 6-point agenda?
This is what we need to do. I would only add two more things to it. As one, it needs to be at scale and speed, what you have also said, but scale and speed, which means have an obsessive view to it. I'm going to make sure so much happens this year. You can't forget it after winter and come back to it next winter. Scale, speed, critical. Keep in mind the CNG experiment. In 2 years, we moved 100,000 vehicles to gas. The entire network of gas was laid up in Delhi. Petrol pumps were moved to gas. All auto rickshaws were moved to gas. You could see stars because it was done at speed and at scale. That's what you need. That's one. And the only other part of it, none of this can be done unless you empower your pollution control board regulators. You staff those authorities, give them a sense of purpose, and make sure they have every smart tool of governance so that they are accountable for making sure that we do not pollute. You cannot do this without governance and the institutions which have the strength to monitor and to enforce. Be very clear about this. Institutions are critical.
How long? If you do all of this stuff, how long will it take?
2 years, 3 years maximum. Take
2 years
take
or 3 years, you could fix the problem.
So you could come down. You could come down each year. Right now, you're going up each year. You need to start bending the curve. Okay? And to bend the curve, my argument would be take something which you can make an immediate difference. My view would be start with gas. Okay? Start with industrial pollution, work on vehicles. So everything has to be done simultaneously. That's also part of the plan. But if you want a big bang, start with gas. Gas is much cleaner than coal. Flood this region with gas so that you make sure that every industry, every power plant is running on gas in this region, and make sure you can enforce it so that that industry which was using coal does not move to an unauthorized area.
Okay.
Gas. But then Public transport is the real game changer. That's what we have to, because
All right,
at the end of the day,
let's pick one thing that we are both passionate about. You push gas.
no,
I feel
I'm
equally
for
strongly
public
about
transport.
public transport.
No, I'm very clear. Public transport is
All
the
right, so
game
we've agreed.
changer.
Public
okay?
transport
Public
is the
transport.
solution
I
and
want
fixed
the right
transport
to
is-
walk. I want to walk from the metro station to my house.
Forget about pollution. Look how much of a nicer city it'll be if they can just
Exactly.
fix that. No
Exactly.
traffic jams. That's worth it. When you're next stuck in a traffic jam, think about it. If you fix this, what all could be done? Sunita Narain, thank you so much for
Thank
joining
you,
us. I think that's a
Vikram.
great action plan. And we're going to ask for your help in this because, quite frankly, this action plan, you can have your own riders, by the way. This is something like an action plan. You can have your own different points that you can add into it, scale it up and down. But we need to sensitize people that it's time to act. We've been debating about all of this for 10 years. We can't debate it anymore. Let's do it. Let's do it now. And we need your help in spreading the word about it.